Hi, my name's Amber and I would like to talk you through my presentation called 6 Years at NTU and how it has shaped me today. So a little bit about me. My name's Amber and I'm 24 and my journey at Nottingham Trent University started almost 6 years ago in 2015 when I joined as an undergraduate student to study broadcast journalism. So I came from a small town down south, and by the time that I'd finished my A-levels, I knew that I had outgrown my surroundings and really was just ready for a change. And I can safely say that I've dived into almost every experience that NTU has offered me, and there have definitely been many, and as a result I've developed into a confident young person with just an immense appreciation for both the university and the city that has really grown to be a second home. So with regards to the Myers and Briggs personality test, I've undertaken this test numerous times in recent years and my result has always been the same. I'm an ENFP, and after reading the description I feel that I can say that it's something that I heavily relate to and I pride myself upon. So when I found out that we were doing it for the Transformational Leadership Development module, I took this test again at the start of the year, but this time I kind of worked my way through it and bared in mind specific weaknesses which I could work upon and put together for a personal development plan. And as someone who struggles with organisation and planning, this task in itself has been really gratifying because it's given me a specific goal to work towards, numerous goals to work towards, and ones where I can see actual results and track my personal and professional development throughout the year. So throughout the year, we've also used the SWOT method, which has been an extremely valuable tool in order to effectively analyse 4 main aspects, which are, of course, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So for myself personally, I'm an extroverted person and I love being around people and social settings, any kind of scenario, but also in the workplace. And I love working in teams and participating in group work, and I'm enthusiastic about what I do. And I'd never really considered some of the opportunities. However, I think that coming to Trent and being able to gain depth over breadth, in particular, in a specific subject and specialising in a field is a really valuable skill. So with regards to my weaknesses, I feel like I've known for a long time that I struggle with organisation, self-motivation and perfectionism. And this is something that's played into my work in the past. And just doing this method of evaluation has forced me to consider my weaknesses and take something such as perfectionism and realise that ultimately my biggest threats because of this can manifest in the forms of indecisiveness and focus. And I suppose if I'm afraid of something not being perfect and then potentially failing if it is not, even if that's, just to myself, I'm putting off this fear by blaming my indecisiveness and my focus, as well as my time management. And so I think it's been incredibly interesting to make these links and make a goal-orientated plan moving forwards, which I would really like to continue doing after university. So how specifically have I developed my professional development through my postgraduate studies so far? And how do I look to continue this for the future? Well, here I've compiled a list of all my main weaknesses, including some of the big ones to me, which are organisation and self-motivation, and link this with these relevant CPD activities. So some of these are ones which will continue throughout the year, such as sustainability awareness. However, I'm very passionate about sustainability, and so having the opportunity to learn more about this, in particular through our specific digital marketing modules throughout the year, has just been a fantastic experience. But also some of these I've completed and succeeded with already, such as organising events for charity. But as mentioned, here is more of a detailed description of my personal development plan. So I've numbered all of my points as to how well, or more fittingly not well, I am at managing these. I've also outlined a timescale for how long I expect this will take me to achieve. And though for the purpose of the workbook, some of these may have shorter timeframes, such as organisation being between October and December. And this is because I just don't wish to delay on making these changes any longer than I have. And whilst immediate and massive improvements may not initially occur, I've probably, through this, made the most amount of progress with this specific weakness that I've ever made in my life. And that's not to say I'm now the best at this, but I've certainly put in a lot of work and a lot of steps to improve this. And I look to continue to do this for the future because it's made me feel just more on top of life and my studies and my mindset. And I think it's important to say that I don't necessarily feel that this development will ever have to end. And I aspire to keep working on these weaknesses in myself throughout my life, and until hopefully they're not as strong weaknesses anymore as they are now. So let's take a look at my CPD activities. So my first CPD activity was working with the charity Solidarity. So Solidarity is a student-led charity which strives to make long-term change in the refugee crisis. So one of their main ways of raising money is to sell T-shirts, and this is where the name obviously comes from. And as you can see, I'm wearing my T-shirt as well. And my role here was as a regional representative, and this included raising awareness about the rights of refugees in Nottingham, and as well as asylum seekers. And this took place mainly in the form of organising events, organising guest speakers to speak at these events, and coming up with creative ideas to be able to fundraise as much as we can to raise money for the cause. And this has been quite difficult during coronavirus because obviously our usual outlets of being able to fundraise and do these kind of events have been unavailable. And so we've had to really get creative with our ideas and just do the best that we can to be able to organise them. And I've never actually volunteered for a charity before, and so I really wanted to take the opportunity to do so because I wanted to benefit a greater cause and make a difference. And this has also motivated me in my personal life because I feel like I'm doing my bit and I'm doing what I can to help a good cause. And also throughout this opportunity, I've been lucky enough to be able to practice other skills such as public speaking skills, which was a really important area that I wanted to practice for my personal development plan. And so through presenting at Solidarity events has enabled me to feel more confident about this aspect of professional development that I wouldn't have been able to achieve before. The next area of my CPD was yoga and mindfulness, and this has been one of my favourite aspects. And I actually embarked on my yoga journey just before I started the postgraduate course, because I'd recognised that stress management was not something that I was very good at. And I met a friend who was a yoga teacher, and she really encouraged me to come and try yoga and give it a go. And she told me about how great it was for stress relief and for your mental health. And at first, it wasn't something that I noticed the immediate benefits of. However, after committing and sticking with it, I really began to notice some of the strategies that I'd picked up throughout the practice, and how these helped with my overall mindset, and could then apply them to my day-to-day life. And so when I saw that there was free yoga sessions for students that was being offered by NTU Sport, I just knew that this would be such a great opportunity to ensure that I stick to a time throughout the week to keep prioritising my personal development and to keep prioritising my mental health. And to me, this is just an ongoing process and something that I really now do enjoy. And despite not noticing those effects immediately, I can now really notice them. And I think that I would struggle to cope as well as I do without having a practice such as this that's good for my mental health and mindfulness. And so it's something that I aim to keep up for as long as possible. So then, of course, we had personal development days, which was during Personal Development Week. And this was an extremely beneficial period because it was allocated to specifically work on your personal and professional development. And so I made use of this time by participating in 2 online sessions, One was with Fiona Duncan-Steer, and it was called The Power of Storytelling, and the other was with Dr. Felicity Baker, and it was called Managing Difficult Conversations. So I chose both of these workshops because I felt these resonated with me the most and was a real aspect that I wanted to work on, and it also linked well with my personal development plan. So in the Power of Storytelling workshop, Fiona spoke about some really great techniques to be able to tell stories in a more engaging manner. And one of the main things I learnt was just throughout your story to remember the main message that you're wanting to convey and always relate back to this. And this helps to keep people more engaged throughout. And although this seems like quite simple, it's quite difficult to do, and to be able to master this will really help me for later on in life. We also spoke throughout the workshop about our own personal experiences, whether that be our accomplishments or any challenges we're facing and future aspirations, and we were all encouraged to share this in an engaging way. And it also looked at how to integrate our stories into our own personal marketing strategy, so that can be both face-to-face and online, and to just cover all bases really. And in the Managing Difficult Conversations workshop, the main skill that I learned was to focus on the outcome. And often it's very overwhelming and daunting to be able to strike up a difficult conversation with somebody in any kind of setting. And whilst I dislike confrontation, I appreciate that it is a necessary part of life. And however, this doesn't make those conversations any easier. And so focusing on the outcome and focusing on the benefit of having them, often, maybe the relief afterwards or the changes that might happen because of that conversation that you've had is so important. And these kind of workshops can often appear intimidating. However, they really help me to realise that I'm not the only one struggling with these kind of skills. I also wanted to take advantage of the employability workshops, which are available to all Trent students, because this was something that I didn't do in my undergraduate and I regretted it. And I know that NTU offer such a wide variety of employability workshops. So as a result, for some of my CPD hours, I signed up to a workshop which provided some really great techniques for the application process of applying for jobs. And these kind of skills are going to be with me for life. So I think it's really beneficial to be able to be always looking to expand my knowledge and expand my confidence really in these kind of scenarios. And as you can see, there were some great platforms that were shared throughout. And this really helped me feel more prepared for the future. And it gave me the opportunity as well to be able to speak to other people who have shared their apprehensions and shared their nerves and their experiences with job interviews, and just network and be able to, gain any extra tips or any extra techniques from other people that I wouldn't have initially been able to do. And it was really great to feel reassured that I'm not the only one, and that this kind of process is just one that everybody has to go through, and that it will get easier, and that every interview will get easier the more that you do. Another one of my goals for my personal development plan was to develop my knowledge around sustainability. And I feel that throughout this year, we've had so many modules which require us to be constantly considering the sustainable development goals. And this is amazing. And I also wanted to participate in something that was extracurricular. So I took part in the global conversation. And this was basically discussing the issues of inclusiveness, safety and resilience for supporting sustainable cities and communities in relation to Sustainability Goals 11 and 17. And this was with students from across the world. So it was with DePaul University in Chicago and ICESI in Colombia. And when I heard about this global conversation opportunity, I thought it was fantastic because I partly speak Spanish, and this was quite a unique opportunity to be able to converse in both an English and Spanish bilingual kind of context about a topic that I'm passionate about as well. This also allowed me to co-create knowledge across borders and cultures, as well as providing the opportunity to establish a network outside of the UK. So this was just all round a really brilliant opportunity. And in this conversation, I spoke with a girl called Mariana, and I shared my experiences of Nottingham and how, in my opinion, I think that we have a lot of sustainable elements that make up the city, such as trams and a huge number of bus routes and lots of transport and public transportation options. And I also spoke about how Nottingham Trent University is one of the world's most sustainable universities, and spoke about our solar panels and how we really, as a university, put sustainability into practice. But Mariana also shared with me about her experiences and told me about what life is like in Colombia and the gap that there is between wealth and sustainability, and how it's not as easy to be able to tackle the problems that there are in the world as it is necessarily in the UK. And this is because she said about how the government are more corrupt than the UK, and so there's often less money that is being designated to increasing sustainability between communities and cities. And I thought that this was so eye-opening, and it gave me such a detailed perspective as to what other cultures and communities experience and live like. And I really think that without this opportunity, I wouldn't have this experience and I wouldn't have this outlook and just a different perspective on how things are across the world. And I think this was one of my greatest highlights throughout the year. So overall, I think reflection and growth is so important, and it's a really necessary skill to be able to do to look forward to the future. And with regards to my personality type, ENFPs are growth orientated, and it really excites us and excites me to be able to know that I'm working towards something and working towards improving myself for the future. To summarise, I'll be answering 5 questions which demonstrate my engagement with the concepts of sustainability as well as responsibility management, and exploring how some of these contribute towards the UN Global Goals for Sustainable Development. So the first question is, what research have I done to help me understand the UN SDGs and why they matter? And I think it's so important to say that throughout the course, we've been constantly analysing these and constantly considering these. And this has been occurring throughout all of our assignments and all of our modules. And especially during the Transformational Leadership Development module, initially a few months back, we were asked to create a poster and we were asked to speak about 4 of these goals. And I think this was a really engaging way to consider how businesses are considering these goals and how businesses can improve on these goals. And I think that this kind of activity and this kind of task, especially working in a team, was a really good way to bring people's ideas together and understand more about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the way that they are used in everyday life. Question 2 has made me realise that although I don't know my chosen profession for the future specifically, that I will always want to bear in mind these goals for the future, and I think they'll always be in the back of my mind when I'm in any position, in any job, and I think that it's some really important skills that I've learned and information and knowledge that I've learned with regards to these and how I can move this forward. For me, responsible management is consistently striving to balance the needs of the whole world, so whether this be people, businesses and the environment. And I think that in order for the current and future generations to benefit and flourish, it's a commitment for managers and politicians and everyday people, really, to think about the legal and moral implications of their daily actions. And so whether that's through ethics, through morals and through environmental concerns, I think that they all come under consideration, and that is what entails by the term responsibility management. To answer question 4, I'd like to speak about a time at the beginning of the year when me and a team member disagreed about the amount of time that would be required to put in for a presentation that we had. And I just spoke to them and tried to understand why they were willing to put in this amount of time. And in conclusion, we were able to resolve this by allowing them to understand that their actions were reflective of a whole team and not just on themselves, and that we were relying on this team member just as much as they were relying on us. And so ultimately, we were all able to put in the correct amount of hours and we were all able to get the correct grade that we wished. For the final question, the problem that we had as a team was that when we were making the poster for the Sustainable Development Goals earlier on in the year, we didn't know which company to choose, and this took quite a lot of time and ended up spending too much time wasting trying to decide the company as opposed to getting the project done and being able to focus on the outcome. So in order to solve this, we discussed as a team, we collected everybody's thoughts, feelings and ideas about it, and then we gathered our overall opinion and what was best suited for the team. So we came to a compromise. And this ultimately created the best outcome because it benefited the team moving forwards and we didn't spend any more time on it. We then also achieved the results that we were hoping for. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.